NWA, we would get stuff from, you'd get stuff from the Horseman ranging to Sting in his like face paint and blonde hair. So it was like stuff from the 80s blended in with the 90s. There was never really like a set thing. It was just, okay, you've got an hour of NWA classics, as it was known. But then it was more for the time period of Wrestling Challenge, like so Big Boss Man, Ultimate Warrior, you know, uh, just when the WWF exploded on the scene and became like a real big thing. Wrestling Challenge and Wrestling Superstars, that was what I grew up on, you know. So
Awesome, man. Awesome. Matt, you got questions?
Yeah. So during that era, just looking at your bio, looking at more of the doing my research leading into this, we're the same age. Who's your favorite wrestler like during that era? Like when you first started watching, like who was the guy that you're like, that's the guy?
Ultimate Warrior all day long. You know, just getting to see this guy that had like huge hair, huge like 1980s like rock band hair, stupid face paint, absolutely huge tassels, bright colors. You know, as a kid, I was just completely enamored by him. You know, so.
Yeah, who wasn't around that time, right?
Yeah, and again, so I was at the first wrestling show that was at Wembley Stadium. I was at SummerSlam '92. And I remember breaking my heart because Ultimate Warrior won, but he won by DQ, so he didn't win the title off Macho Man.
Yeah. So on March in 2004, you versus Samoa Joe in the British promotion IPW. Can you talk about that match and how'd that go? And
so that was my breakout match when everybody in England found out who Martin Stone was. I started training in 2003, and then I made my debut in 2004, in January of 2004, and then I got the call. I got a call from that local promotion. I said, "Hey, do you want to work Samoa Joe?" And at the time, I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." And you know, I was very fortunate enough for that match to go exceptionally well, and that was the match that put me on the map. And then, yeah, it was kind of all right. Well, all guns blazing after that. You know, I was very, very fortunate. Joe was an absolute superstar that day. You know, so.
Now, do you guys still communicate through today up to now, or?
I speak to Joe every now and then. It's not as though like we're best friends and we go out for drinks every week or anything like that. But right. I'll text Joe every now and then, you know. And it was just great because, I got to see Joe back when we were both in NXT. I got to talk to Joe quite a bit when he was on the main roster. When I was in, when I got re-signed during the boom period of NXT and stuff. So like he's a great guy. He's absolutely fantastic. So
yeah, Matt.
So jumping a little bit forward, you're stopping TNA. Do you have any fun stories or cool stories about your time during that whole TNA British boot camp? Is there anything
I mean, that was. I'd just been released and I was home in England, so it was just one of those things of, we need names. They'd already pre-picked who was winning and stuff like that, which it's a work show. It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, but it didn't really amount to anything. So
awesome, man, awesome. Now there's guys like I didn't realize how many guys were from or talent were from over in London and England, like Pac and Paige, Rockstar Spud, Magnus, and Sheamus and Wade Barrett. Are you? How do you look at their careers going? What they're doing now, and are you surprised at where they're at now? And is that the goal that you're trying to?
No, not one bit. Like you've literally just listed off a who's who of British wrestlers that made it mainstream. Okay. So I'm not surprised at all.
Awesome. Is there one individual of those that are excelling more than you thought they were, or no?
Not one bit, no.
And that's your goal, right? To get to one of those main rosters, and your comeback.
Ask me that later on.
All right, I will.
Out of all the guys that are currently out there that you haven't gotten a chance to work with yet, who's the one guy that you're like, man, that's the guy I would love to have a program with, do a
Will
run
Ospreay.
with? Okay.
Yeah, I was so when especially once I moved to the States and I started to make a name for myself, and I was going back and forth to England. Will was just coming up, and Will started off as a complete, he was a high flying spot monkey. His matches didn't make sense, but he did some absolutely amazing, incredible stuff. But now Will has turned into the most polished performer ever. I would love to tear it up with Will.
Awesome, man. The name Danny Burch. Did you like the ring name Danny Burch? And also, how did that come about?
That was a name that was given to me in FCW. We had to make up names, like write down 10 different names. So I first reported for duty in FCW in 2012, June 3rd. And it was just, okay, write some names down. And wasn't the name I wrote down, but they came up with it. And yeah, that was my name. And I was like, well,
that wasn't on the list, but whatever.
Wasn't on the list, but yeah, there's not really a lot you can do about it, So
yeah. Matt.
So one of my favorite matches of yours is actually playing in the background there. Your War Games match. Absolutely loved it. It was one of those matches that I actually had to go back and rewatch again. I've watched it several times. Your group, excuse me, your group that you were with Pete Dunne, with Pete Dunne. I'm sorry, Pete Dunne. Oni Lorcan.
Pat
Wow.
McAfee.
Pat McAfee. I'm zoning. I've been up since 2:00 this morning. I'm sorry. What was it like working with those guys in that atmosphere during that program? What was it like running with those guys? You were obviously already tagging with Oni at the time. Like, yep. What was it like with Pete and Pat McAfee?
Oni, for whatever reason, me and Oni clicked. We were two guys that literally just got thrown together, and NXT at the time was like, well, let's see where this goes. So we were two complete no-name people that were just thrown together, and then we somehow created magic, and we did. Like our whole feud with Undisputed Era when we first came in at NXT Takeover Chicago, we had that match, and we solidified ourselves as a top babyface team. There was no flash, there was no razzmatazz. It was just, all right, we're just going to go out there and beat the crap out of people. But for whatever reason, it worked, and the crowd loved us. But to then get the chance to turn heel, work with Pete, not what else can be said about Pete? Pete Dunne is one of the greatest British wrestlers ever. And I say that very, very loosely, especially because the fact that he's like not even 30 yet, like he's, Pete's a phenom. But then when you bring Pat as the dynamic, who is obviously exceptionally charismatic, has no loss for words on the microphone, to get that opportunity and for all of us to get together, and we were talking each week, and it just gelled, it just worked for whatever reason. It just worked. You bring four people that are the most vastly different people from around the world, and it worked. It just worked, and I think that the booking was wrong in that match. I think that we should have won because the feud carried on after War Games. So I think that we should have won that match to then carry on the feud and keep it going. But hey, I was in a War Games match. Never in a million years when I first started wrestling would I have said, I'm going to be in a War Games match, main event in the takeover. Never would have said that in a million years.
But that was a hell of a match, you guys.
Yeah, it was.
That was a lot of fun. It was so much fun.
So I'm going to ask a question about that. I'm looking at that ring behind Matt on the TV, and that metal cage. I'm sure you got tossed against the metal cage. How does that feel?
It's unforgiving.
Fans. You talk about to a lot of fans.
Unforgiving. It's a solid cage.
You hear fans all over the place how this, or people all over say wrestling's fake, but I'm like, if I hit that cage, I'm sure as shit gonna feel it.
I wish wrestling was fake. I've had three knee surgeries and 4 shoulder surgeries. I wish wrestling was fake.
Well, thank you.
So
I guess that's a roundabout answer to the question I was going to ask you. Is people? What do you have to say to people that say wrestling's fake? So you just said it.
So a knee-jerk reaction is obviously you want to grab hold of them and slap them across the face and be like, "Do you realize what we have to sacrifice to be a professional wrestler?" And that's not just what's in ring. So what I liken professional wrestling to is, I would say, okay, do you think figure skating in the Olympics is fake? 2 people that get on the ice and they paint their picture on the canvas that happens to be an ice rink. It's just the same as a professional wrestler. They take risks because obviously, the guys pick the girls up, and what happens if he slips? What happens if he drops her?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. As a professional wrestler, we are stuntmen. We are part actor, part athlete, part bodybuilder. Yes, okay. The veil got moved out of the way, and everybody came to know that wrestling was a work. So, predetermined, yes. Fake, absolutely not.
That's a good answer.
Absolutely not.
That's a good definition. I appreciate that. Thanks, man.
So, I had asked you who you would like to work with, since you've out of the people you haven't worked with yet. Who is the one guy that you enjoyed working with the most, and the guy that you would love to have another program with?
Some of the most amount of fun I had on the Indies was with Matt Riddle. We had some really, really good matches. They were chaos. They were creative. They were wild. So if I was on TV, I think it'd be a lot of fun to have a program with Matt.
Huh?
So in your NXT tag title run, you worked with Breezango. How was that?
Oh, it's fantastic. Breeze and Dango are just the absolute most professional people I've been in the ring with. It was a lot of fun, especially when we're in the back, and just, all right, well, let's just go out there and see what happens. We'd have the finish, and we'd, let's just get there, but just, again, they are absolute pros, and it was so easy to just get in the ring and work with them, so, and again, they put us on the map. If it hadn't been for the match with Breezango, we wouldn't have won the titles. So, I'm forever indebted to those guys.
What about Tommaso Ciampa? Is he how's he like to work? What's he like to work with?
He's fantastic. Funny enough, in 2016, I had my breakout match in the US against Ciampa for a company in Atlanta called AWE, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. And again, that was the match that I did that, and then the US indie scene took notice. So yeah, he's fantastic. He really is.
Wrestling in England and wrestling in the States in front of several sized crowds, etc. Then in the pandemic, when there was TV screens around the arena instead of fans, what was it like? And was the transition different, working in front of 300,000, 100,000, 50,000 to working in front of essentially nobody?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How was that?
So at first it was a very weird position to be in, because obviously wrestling is a live event entity. You have to have fans. You have to be able to hear the fan reaction and stuff like that. But for me, it was almost a challenge, because it's like, well, okay, when you got fans and you got noise and stuff like that, you can kind of look at the guy and be like, all right, we're going to do this, and this. You don't really have to be quiet about it, because, you might be lucky that the cameras will pan out and they'll shoot the crowd and stuff like that. But when it was in that setting, it was like the cameras were constantly on you. So for me, it made me a better wrestler because I was able to call stuff without being seen. One of my favorite matches during that whole time period was against Kushida, which sucked that nobody was there. Like it like killed me. I was like, wow, this is the one match I've wanted for a long time, especially since he came to NXT and just obviously how good he is and the history he has in New Japan. And I was so excited about it, but it was also like with no crowd. Wow, this is gonna suck. But getting to go out there and have the match that we did and be able to talk to him without the cameras picking it up was great. Again, I'm just a wrestler. I'm just a journeyman wrestler. So at that time period, yes, there was no crowd. Yes, COVID was a thing. So it was, well, this is what I get paid to do. I get paid to go out there and put smiles on people's faces. So I was gonna do my job to the best of my ability.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you.
And the company was so careful with all the protocols and stuff like that. And just because I know that there was a few things that came out at the time, like they don't care about their performers. That wasn't the case at all. Like they literally took care of us. Like I was able to take care of my family during a time period when thousands and millions of people were getting laid off and stuff like that. So just, I was very, very fortunate.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Out of all the places that you've been blessed to perform for these, where's your favorite place or the most memorable place you've been able to perform?
Obviously, you have Takeover in Chicago. That was the match that made me, and it made me a household name with the NXT fans. I still won't watch the match back because I know I'm going to rip my performance apart. But the feeling on that night of going out there as the baby faces and getting booed out the building, and then literally being able to turn them before we got to the hot tag. To the point when it was the whole, wow, all right, we've got two Rocky Balboas right now that are trying to win the title against Apollo, and so to be able to turn that crowd. I mean, if you go back and watch that match back, like, we had no chance. The minute we walked out, like UE came out first, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this is going to be interesting, and we got booed out the building. But then to be able to turn them to the point by the end of it, they genuinely wanted us to win, was a very, very special feeling. And that's a night I will never, ever forget. I won't watch it back because that is ingrained in my head. So I don't want to watch it back because then I'll be like, well, I should have done this and we should have done that. And, I didn't do that right. So I won't touch it. And I won't. It was the same with War Games. I haven't watched that match back. But in terms of on the indies, it was always a pleasure to work at Rev Pro at York Hall, 20 minutes down the road from where my mum lived. It was a very small, intimate setting, but AWE in Atlanta, it was my home promotion for a long time. And, I would say Atlanta, Chicago, London. Those are probably the places that stick out the most.
Okay. I was watching a clip from last night. They did a taping of WWE, and this is what brought the question up. How important is the communication between the back, people in the back, you wrestling in the ring, and the referees that all play a part of this whole thing to unfold? How important is that communication? Is it always going on that us fans don't see it? But last time we've seen it when somebody got hurt, they threw up the X.
I mean, everyone, a lot of people don't realize in a wrestling match there's three people. If you have an exceptionally good referee, your night is going to be so much easier. If you have a terrible referee, it's going to be the worst match ever. Nobody gives referees the amount of credit that they need, because I couldn't do what they do. They have a headpiece on, and you've literally got producers and agents scream, tell them to do this, tell them to do that, tell them they've got 2 minutes left. Blah, blah, blah. If you've got a bad ref that can't communicate that, like the match is going to go over, and on TV, that's a huge no-no, because obviously you're then taking time away from the main event. Or, you know, what's exceptionally important on TV here in the States is the crossover hour. You have to hit a time at the crossover. If you don't hit that, it screws everything up. So if you've got a ref that has no idea how to communicate and can't work with you, match is going to tank. So I literally can't say, well, the match is about the wrestlers and the ref's just there as a tool. Not one bit. That is a three-way dance. And just, if you like, and I've worked with some of the best refs in this job, and it ranges from really good to exceptional to good to god awful. And again, it's the same on the indies. You've got a lot of places now that use headsets just to say, hey, tell them they've got 3 minutes left and stuff like that. And I've worked with refs that are getting called the times, and I'm asking, how much time? And they're like looking at me like, and it completely kills the match. So I've got so much respect for an exceptional ref, because the job they have, especially on TV, the jobs those guys have it's so difficult. And to have a ref that can keep their cool, listen to the time cues, they come around and they tell you and everything like that, but you don't see them like, hey, you got 5 minutes left. When you don't see them, yeah, magic. Like if you get an exceptional ref, your match is going to be magic.
Awesome, thank you. Matt?
So going forward, where would you ideally love to end up? Like the next big promotion, where would you like to end up?
New Japan.
Is there any,
for me, I think I mean, I was blessed to work for WWE on 2 occasions. The first time wasn't that great. The second time was. I got let go for whatever reason. But then I was still injured at the time. So I was out of the ring for 2 years. I was out from March 2021. And I didn't come back to wrestling until December of 2023. So I was gone for a long time. Gone for a very, very long time. I wasn't happy with the fact that I got released while I couldn't work. I thought that was a pretty shitty move. But it is what it is. I was there for 4 years during the time period when NXT was a third brand. Now it's not. And I can happily say that. NXT 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, it does not hold a candle to the time period I was there.
I agree.
And I was very, very fortunate enough to win a title in the largest wrestling company in the world. And if you would have told 23-year-old me when I made my debut that, hey, you're going to work for the largest wrestling company in the world and you're going to become tag team champion there, I'd have laughed at you. I never got into wrestling to be, I want to be the main event or I want to do this. I just love professional wrestling. I just wanted to work. I never got into it to, I want to make $1 million and I want to do this. And then I want to go on to movies. I never got into it for that, and I, again, with everything I've done and the year that I had in 2022, I was at that point when I was like, you know what? I'm going to call it quits. I had a great run. I'm injured now. Maybe my shoulder might get fixed. I don't know. I wasn't sure. I was going to call it quits. The minute I got cleared, I sat there and I was like, nah, I'm not done yet. So here I am. But for me right now, I never had the chance to go to Japan. I worked a lot of Japanese wrestlers. I was in the ring with a great Muta at one point in time in England. So I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But yeah, that's, I think, is going to be my destination. So.
Awesome, man. Now you got released the same day as William Regal, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought I thought I read an article about that, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was me, Ace Steel, Hideki Suzuki, Timothy Thatcher, Samoa Joe, William Regal. This is just my take. This doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, but we were the last of the guys that were employed by Triple H. And this is when Triple H had to take a sabbatical because of his heart condition. So you can look into that as much as you want or however you want, but yeah.
I think as fans, we all can agree that there's a difference between Triple H and Vince McMahon shows, and it shows.
No, because Vince is still there, and at the end of the day, Vince created this monstrosity, massive juggernaut. Yeah. If it wasn't for Vince, there would especially from when it first came into fruition. If it wasn't for a genuine visionary like Vince McMahon, there would be no WWE. They genuinely wouldn't. I'm not going to say it was Vince's idea. There was maybe one other person. So you can all look into that as much as you want. Again, that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. Just my opinion.
All right.
This isn't like set in stone or this is what. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of interesting reasons as to why we all got released on that day. Let's just say that. So.
Well, there.
So, if I remember right, and I might be,
there we go. You can see me now.
I might be a little bit off. You guys end up calling out the Imperium after a
yes, yep.
Whose idea? I mean, I'm like, who threw together the idea of mocking them using their pose? Like who threw that out there? Like, because I remember,
one of the writers. I can't remember who it was. One of the writers, but then it went nowhere.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Nowhere. So
Because to me, you and Oni would have put on an absolute, just a slugfest against those two guys.
Yeah.
I would pay big money to watch that. Yeah.
Again, we had worked those guys so many times on non-televised matches. I think we had one televised match against them, which we went over, and that was before they became, as good as they are now. Because again, Marcel, Fabian, they are absolutely phenomenal. They are such a pair of incredible talent. And we worked them so many times on like the live events in Florida, on the loops when we would go out of state. Like we worked them so many times, and the matches were always so good. So we did that whole promo in the bar when we were like, we're going to chase Imperium for the titles, but it never went anywhere. So it was stupid, really, and it annoyed me because it's like it was a feud we could have got our teeth stuck into. The matches would have been good. It would have been another like, okay, well, Oni and Danny have proved themselves yet again, but we never got the chance to do it. So
I'm a big indie wrestling fan. I didn't realize the difference between the big show on TV and the indie wrestling shows. The ones I've experienced are way more crazy, and guys go through all kinds of hell on those shows, it seems like. Well, what is your opinion on the state of the independent scene today?
I mean, COVID kind of ruined everything. Yeah. And I had a lot of friends on the independent scene that, they made their living through wrestling. So then the guys were struggling, which was never good to see. But, I mean, you've got GCW, which run, multiple shows per month. Like they pretty much run every single weekend.
Right.
Like they're booked up solid. I've got the pleasure of working for a company down in Florida called CCW, and they run like 9 to 10 shows a month. The UK scene, looks like it's still it looks like it's struggling a little bit because there's no more. It's hard. Like, just the scene was absolutely bursting when I was trying to remake my name for myself and come back up, especially being in the States, like trying to make my name. And okay, well, I'm basically starting from scratch. I've moved to a new country. So like the scene was absolutely booming everywhere. It seems to have, like, the candles like burning down a little bit, but it's going to boom again, and it will boom again. It's just when it booms again. But I mean, if but again, I can say that, but then you go watch GCW and it completely contradicts what.
Oh.
The phone call. There's so many people there in the crowd. Like the crowds are rammed, and like just the venues are packed. Excuse me. So it's like I'm contradicting myself, but just as a whole, when you had the boom period, every single place was doing really well. Like, it was packed everywhere. Whereas now it's like there's key places that are packed. You got West Coast Pro, which seems to be doing well. You got Defy Wrestling in Seattle, which seems to be doing really well. You got New Japan USA, which is obviously booming. AEW, Ring of Honor, there's so many places doing really, really well. But when I was around during the boom period, even the smaller shows where you might only get one or two names, the venues would still be packed. Whereas now that's gone back to how it was. You might get 200 people in there, maybe 100. So the boom period will happen again, but just COVID ruined everything. So it's going to take a while for it to build back up. New stars have to be made, because when you think about it, like at the time I was in NXT, like, it was a who's who of the independent level was signed and was on TV every week.
Right.
So, yeah.
Matt.
Who? Okay, so we're obviously all fans of the business, or we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yep.
What shows do you watch? What promotions do you pay more attention to than the others, or what is your favorite show to watch right now?
I'll watch anything that's done by New Japan. But my favorite show to watch right now is AEW Collision. It is 2 hours of, and I say this word, I'll say it loosely because there's no such thing, but it's 2 hours of perfection. You have literally some of the most solid performers that have ever stepped inside a ring. I literally just watched, maybe 2 hours ago, I watched the tag match between FTR and Bullet Club Gold. What an amazing tag match that was.
Yeah.
What an amazing tag match. Literally an hour of keeping the crowd captivated. No, you could tell there was not one person in that crowd that wasn't invested. No one was bored, because sometimes you watch like main shows, and you're lucky if you get the front row to pick their nose because they're sitting there texting. Collision for me so far has been the most polished 2 hours of television wrestling from the first episode until now. So that I am literally watching every single week.
Yeah, that's a good show. So all right, like I said, bragged a bunch on you, and I think you called the period that you're in now the redemption time of your career.
Yes.
I know. I mean, can you talk about the what that means to you? I know that there was a state that when you broke your collarbone and the recovery sucked and all this stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course, yeah. So I first got injured in March of 2021 in the match against Karrion Kross and Finn Balor. I separated my shoulder and went to the doctors the next day. I was more annoyed at the fact I couldn't finish the match. Every time I tried to get back in the ring, my shoulder kept popping back out. So I just couldn't finish the match, and that's throughout my whole career. That's the one thing that annoys me the most. You know, I just wanted to get back. We were literally a minute away from going home, so I was very very frustrated with that. But yeah, so I went to the doctors the next day, or well, the surgeon, got my shoulder. You know, I got the MRI and stuff like that, and you have between a grade 1 and a grade 6 of a shoulder of a ACL separation. A grade 1 is okay, you'll be back in a month's time, you just rehab. And then you got the grade 6, which is the worst thing you could do. And of course I had a grade 6, so I required surgery. I was very very lucky because when the bone went through and it separated, I didn't catch my rotator cuff or my labrum. I was very very lucky. So it was, as much as it was a very invasive surgery, it was a very straightforward surgery. Fast forward 6 months, I come back and I have the last main event on the black and gold brand against MSK. Had a great match. I got paid a very lovely compliment from Shawn Michaels when I came back of, Danny, you've not missed a beat. Wow. Like, thank you. And I was like, really taken aback by that. And then we were at the PC, and at the time, obviously, we're not running live events in Florida, still due to, you know, COVID protocols and stuff like that. And again, the company took their time to get back out there in front of a live crowd, which I don't blame them at all. You know, it took a while. It did take a while. And then so I'm on a PC live show. He's going to run nameless, but very careless and just very, very green. He broke my collarbone on the same shoulder that I just had that surgery performed on. At the time, I was told, it's going to take 8 weeks. It's just a broken collarbone, no problem. So they put a metal plate in it, and it will, you know, everything's going to heal and it's going to be good. 3 weeks later, he got infected. So then they had to go back in again, take the plate out, clean it all out, because if not, I would have had, you know, the infection would have started to eat away at my shoulder bone. So they cleaned it out. Then there was issues with the original surgery might have been compromised. So they weren't sure if they had to go back in and repair that again, because my shoulder was raising up on the x-ray. So it was a waiting process. I just had to sit and wait. I went back in for another x-ray maybe 6 weeks later, and they were like, no, you're good. We just need to let this heal. But then my collarbone was just not healing properly. And then, so that was March 2021. So I was out all of 2021. I was originally then supposed to get cleared in 2022 of April, but obviously we got to January and I got released. Went back to the surgeon April of 2022, and it still wasn't healing properly. So then I had to go in for the final procedure in June of 2022, where they had to take a piece of my hip bone out and bone graft my shoulder. And they were hoping that this was going to work. So at this point in time, in my head, I was like, I'm done. Like, well, I guess I'm done. Like, we're going to hope this works. But someone was looking out for me, because obviously December 2022, I had the chance to get cleared. So very, very thankful for that. But it was a very, very tough time period, you know, because for the first time in my life, I was told that you can't do what you love. And then also as well, at that point, I was told I was too old. So I was going to have, you know, I was made a coach. I was having a coach on the sidelines while I was injured. Produced some matches, which was a great experience, but always in the back of my mind, I was like, am I done? Am I too old? Because, you know, you got guys on the main roster that are like way closer to 50 than I am, that are still performing at a very high level. So it kind of pissed me off that it was just like, well, you're too old, that's it. So we're going to, you're no longer on TV. We've written you off TV without actually being written off TV. So I was like, well, okay, I guess. But yeah, it was a real tough, very, very tough time period.
Yeah, that must have got into your head a lot, because I know.
Oh yeah, just completely like, am I too old? Am I going to get cleared? Can I still do this? Am I going to be able to compete at the same? If I do decide to carry on doing this, can I compete at the same level I did before? Yeah, so just there was a lot of things. There was a lot of stuff going on. So
where's your mindset at now for going forward?
I am now. I mean, I've been wrestling since January. It wasn't until March was I had a match in March and just everything clicked again, and I was like, right, I'm back to normal now. Like I again, touch wood, knock on wood right now. I have no problems with this when I'm in the ring. I'm not aware of it anymore. I never think, oh God, my shoulder. Because again, with the first few matches, I was so protective of it. I was like, oh my God. I was like, well, maybe I can't take this, or hey, I can't catch dives because of my shoulder. Now I don't even think about it. Just I'm like, yeah, throw me, do this, do that. I've got a street fight scheduled next month, so that's going to be wild. It's going to be a wild ass brawl. So just now, I'm off to the races. So for me now, it's just getting my name back out there, which is going to be very difficult because I've been Danny Burch for the last 4 years. So now I've got to get Martin Stone back out there again. But it's a challenge I'm ready and able to accept. So just now it's off to the races and, fall in love with the business all over again. So, because, again, during that time period when I was out, like, it was very, very hard to watch wrestling, especially after I got let go. It was so hard to watch wrestling because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what I've been doing for, at that time, like 19 years. I hit my 20-year anniversary 2 months ago. Yeah. So, the one thing that's been a constant in my life, I couldn't do, and it killed me. It absolutely killed me. So,
thank you for that answer, Matt.
Go back to when, like, they had you as the coach and somewhat an agent during that time. Was there any guys that you coached and put together matches for that are on their way up still that we should watch for?
Not really.
Okay.
I'll be completely honest, not really. Like, the company will push whoever they deem suitable, whoever that they want to be put forward, and that's how it works. You could be the next Bret Hart, or you could be as good as Bret Hart or Dynamite Kid or anybody like that. But if you're not what they're looking for, they're going to go, oh, yeah, you are so good. You're great. You can do this, you can do that, you can do everything, but we want him. And that's the nature of that's the nature of working for big corporate companies. Mate, you are fantastic, but we want him. Well, yeah, but I'm better than him. Well, it doesn't really matter, but we want him. So there wasn't... Again, the only person I ever called when I said he's going to be really big was when I was first in developmental, and you had Sean Ricker there, aka LA Knight. That was the only person that said, okay, he's going to make it big time. But then he got released, but then he's come back, and now he's getting his props. But in terms of the guys that were in developmental, and that's not me being snarky or being an arsehole or anything like that, but there was never anyone that jumped out to me or I was like, okay, he's going to make it.
Yeah.
So that's fair.
Okay, so in the fan realm of wrestling, there's all kinds of different shows to watch, and every fan wants to they have their opinions on the shows and on the product and on who's who and everything else, and they want to be Dave Meltzer, blah 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 blah. What are your hot thoughts about fans bantering back and forth on what product is better and what is not?
At the end of the day, who cares? If you're a wrestling fan, you have so much content to watch. Like, who cares? When I was growing up, I was watching WWF or E. I was watching WCW. Like, who cares? If you're a wrestling fan, just go and enjoy wrestling. Like, it doesn't matter about anything, So for me, like, when you see the guys that are like, well, it just seems to me that the internet wrestling community are just ready to just go, oh, they failed and I called it, and I'm just like, shut up, just watch wrestling and enjoy it. Like, who cares? Like, there needs to be two companies. There needs to be competition because it makes wrestling better. So it's like, why would you, when you can watch so much wrestling, why would you pigeonhole yourself? Well, I'm just going to watch this one brand and it's better because these guys do this. And then you get someone that says, well, I prefer, WWE's better because they've got Roman and this and that. Like, who cares? Just go and be a wrestling fan. Just go and watch wrestling and enjoy it.
Yeah, sure.
It drives me nuts when it's like us, like the whole us versus them pack mentality. Like, who cares? I literally watch a bit of everything. I will watch stuff from the Indies. I'll watch Collision. I'll watch Raw and SmackDown. Well, I don't really watch Raw and SmackDown, but like I'll watch the pay-per-views. Like, just be a fan. like who cares?
Yeah, sure.
No, talked about. He brought up Dave Meltzer. Do guys really in the back care about his star rating? Like, are there people that actually care about that in the actual business, or is that more?
I can only go from my experience. I've nenever, and I've been in a lot of locker rooms over the years. I've never heard one wrestler say to me, "We've got to go out there and have a 5-star match so that Dave Meltzer likes it." I've never heard that. Am I sure there's some guys that think like that? More than likely. I've never been around anybody that's ever said we have to go out there and have a 5-star match because Dave Meltzer needs to like it and put us over. I've never heard that. So that's my experience. So at the end of the day, the only people that matter, the promoter who books you, because at the end of the day, you want to get booked again, and the fans. For me, that's all that matters. As long as the promoter's happy because he's paying me at the end of the day, and as long as the fans react to how I want them to react, and they can go home and realize they had a good show. And for instance, let's say the dad that has 4 kids and his wife, he comes in, so he buys 5 tickets, goes to the concession stands, spends a fortune at the concession stands on drinks, popcorn, hot dog, takes the kids around the merch tables or whatever, or even in the stands on the merch tables, spends between 20 to 40 bucks on a t-shirt for each kid. As long as he goes home happy and has had a good time, my job is done, because that means he's going to tell his friends and tell his friends, and they'll tell their friends, and then more people come back. Those are the people that matter. For me personally, it's not about, well, I need 1 or 2 people in the internet world to say that I'm good. It's not about that. It's a live event. It is a live event production. It's not an internet production.
Right.
So,
thank you for that.
And again, that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. Wrestling is subjective. So
that was kind of like my next question. But so the one thing you didn't touch on is how important are seminars to wrestlers like you, and should fans go to those seminars, or is it just wrestler based?
It should just be wrestler based, because obviously it's gonna, I do a lot of wrestling seminars, so it's going to go over the fans' heads because they're not wrestling. They're going to be like, wait, what? It'd be like going to a rehearsal for a magician. It's going to go over your head if you don't know what you're looking at. But I do think seminars are very important, because at the end of the day, wrestling is subjective. So the way I do wrestling doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. The way that a luchador does wrestling doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. To go back to the days of Bruce Lee, when he took a bit of boxing, a bit of Chinese kung fu, and then he took the footwork in fencing, and then he took, he then started to incorporate grappling. Like, to be the most complete performer and the best performer, you need to throw it all in a blender, mix it all up, and you start throwing it at the wall, and you see what sticks. So, I'm a huge believer in just going and being a sponge and learning from as many different styles and different ways of how people do wrestling and teach wrestling. Like, you need like a broad spectrum so that you can become the most complete performer you can.
Yeah. Matt?
You can go ahead. I'm scrolling through my notes right now.
All right. So I have like 3 more questions to ask you. You've been in the business 20 years. What is the one thing you can take away from the experience of the business that you'll go, yep, that's what I took away?
Good or bad?
Give me both. Shoot
Okay.
one. Shoot from the hip.
Okay, so I'll start with the bad. Some of the most soul-crushing lows I've experienced in life has been through wrestling. Just when you think like you're so close to getting there, and then nothing, and you're just like, what am I doing wrong? What have I got to do to get to the next level? What have I got to do to, break out? Just, there was a period in time when I was having the most solid matches, and just I was working everywhere, but then just nothing was happening. I was spinning my wheels, and I'm like, I must be doing something wrong. And then the amount of like more experienced people, they were like, no, it just takes time. And I'm like, what do you mean it takes time? It's like, just takes time, because you could be on a show in front of 10 people, but then there's a scout in the crowd for a certain company, and they're like, oh, this guy, but then you don't realize that, and you're just like, wow, I'm working in front of 10 people. Like, I think it's time to hang the boots up. Like, oh God, I can't do this anymore. And then all out the blue, you get an email and it's like, hey, we saw you do this. We want you to come to PWG or whatever. And then your indie career takes off. Like, those are some of the most frustrating times. The highs I've had, at the end of the day, I'm a kid from London. I got the opportunity to move to America, and I've traveled the world for free and had an absolute blast.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
So you're obviously not done with your career. You have a while left, and I feel you have a long road left ahead of you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What's the one, not necessarily a championship, but what's the one thing you want to accomplish before your career ends? Like, what's the one thing that you want?
There's nothing really. At the end of the day, I'm just a pro wrestler. For me to be able to carry on wrestling and get booked by places and stuff like that, like that's what makes me happy, because it's like people still are like, we still value your skills, we still value what you bring to the table. So I can't say that there's, I want to be IWGP heavyweight champion by the time I'm 52. There's nothing like that. I accomplished way more than I ever thought I ever would when I first stepped foot inside a wrestling school. Like, just at that point in time, I just wanted to wrestle. Then it became small goals of like, I'm the first match, I'm doing well, but I want to move myself up the card, and just then it got to a point where I was like, hey, I want a main event. Like, all those little boxes I ticked off. Then it was, I went for my first tryout, and WWE were interested, and then I got asked to come back, and then I got signed on the, and then my second tryout I got signed. Then, I reported for duty, and then it didn't work out, and I got let go. Then I started watching the, NXT become what it was, and then I was like, man, I just want to go back there and get given a fair shot and a fair opportunity. And then I had the chance to do that again, and then, I ended up becoming tag team champion. So just it was just like small little goals, but like right now, just I never thought I would achieve like anything like that. So now I've been blessed, I've been fortunate. So now I'm just like, I want to work as much as possible. Like, again, my goal now is to get to Japan. If I get the chance to work for Impact and AEW and stuff like that and Ring of Honor, then please, absolutely, I would absolutely love that. But I've never been to Japan. So for me to be able to go to Japan would be, that's probably the real big thing left for me, just to say I actually wrestled in Japan and performed in Japan. So
in your opinion, do you feel wrestling is organic, or does it need to be more organic? In your opinion?
Wrestling needs to be more organic. And again, this is my opinion. I just feel that there's a massive ceiling in television wrestling companies that prevent people from being organic and getting over. And again, I'm going to say this, and this might ruffle a few feathers. I'm sure I'll get some DMs off of this. I do think Oni and myself were never designed to get over, but because of takeover Chicago, we got over, and they did not know what to do with us. Because I remember finishing that match and the reaction we got, and I came to the back. I'm not going to say who said it. Well, the War Raiders are the next babyface tag teams, so like, don't get comfortable. So we weren't designed to get over, and we did. And I think that was it was a plus, and it was a huge detriment to us. So I feel that wrestling companies should just, if someone gets over, run with it. That's how it used to be. I think in today's climate, you wouldn't have a Rock or an Austin.
I think they're doing that with a couple stars in the WWE
right
now.
And again, that's just my opinion.
No,
but I think that in today's climate, like, because people, okay, we want this guy, we want this guy, we want this guy. The guys that got over organically and became some of the biggest stars in our industry, wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So,
you and Oni, if you guys got back together and ran today, who would you want to have a series of matches with, have a program with in today's business? Like,
I mean, that's a complete dream, but we'll just say this is a dream match. I think us and FTR. I think us and God rest his soul, the Briscoes would have been fantastic. So those are, I mean, us and the Bucks would have been good. Like, and again, there wasn't a team that we couldn't work. We could literally go out there and work anybody. So, but I think that for us, I think the match, and that's, well, I'll say right now that's never going to happen. So, but if we were to get back together, us and FTR would be magic, because I mean, FTR are the measuring stick of tag teams. They really are. They are, I can't say enough good things about FTR. They are so good. So, yeah.
I have one more thing that whatever Matt has. I have a list of wrestlers that I wrote down. Just give me your hot take quick, about these names. The Bloodline.
Absolutely fantastic.
MJF.
Superb.
FTR.
Amazing.
My all-time favorite, Sting.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Roman Reigns.
He is the top superstar right now.
Last one, Cody Rhodes.
He's a visionary. If it wasn't for Cody, there would be no competition. And wrestling got a lot better once there was competition. So Cody is 100% a visionary.
Yeah.
I that's a good way to end that. I mean,
so we've had the pleasure to be speaking with Martin Stone over the last hour. Mr. Stone, in closing, do you have any words for upcoming wrestlers you may face? And where can we find you these days? And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to get you on the show. I am so excited that you made time for us to be here. So I'm going to give you the floor. It's yours. Say what you need to say, and close it up.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure just to get the opportunity to tell my story, because it comes with a lot of ups and downs. But just for new wrestlers, make sure your basics are as solid as possible. And I mean solid. Be able to go out there and work on the mat for 20 to 30 minutes, because it's great, if you can do a triple moonsault, or if you can do the stuff that Vikingo does, and and do all that amazing the spectacular stuff that I can't do, that's great. But if you've got no substance to your work, if you can't make it believable and make it as realistic as possible to the point that, there could be like 5 bikers that happen to come to a wrestling show, and if you lose their attention, like, those are the people you want to be able to draw in. If you can get the casual wrestling fan to believe what you do and suspend their disbelief for the 15 to 20 minutes that you're on, that's where you are gonna thrive, because then all the amazing stuff you can do on top of that, that's just icing on the cake. So to any new wrestler, please, 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 we need to make the business better. So just make it as believable as you can, and the sky's the limit from there. So like, that's my only take. Like, find a credible school, find a school where the trainers have done something. They've actually walked the walk. Don't just find someone that's like, oh, this is a wrestling school, and there's a ring in the corner and there's no structured training or anything like that. Like, don't go to those places. Yes, training to be a wrestler is expensive, but take the time, and pay the money for someone that is going to genuinely want to help you and make you better. In terms of finding me, you can find me on social media on @StrongStyleBrit, which is my handle on Twitter and Instagram. And to any fan that has ever come along to a show, paid their hard-earned money to come see me perform, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I couldn't do what I love and what I have done for the last 20 years if it wasn't for the fans that have done that. So thank you.
There you have it, guys. Thank you. I'd like to, Mr. Stone, can you stay tight? I'm going to close the show, and we'll talk to you in the lobby in just a second.
Of course.
Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you, Matt, for being part of the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. Thank you, Mr. Stone, for showing up and being part of this broadcast. It was awesome. Thank you, guys. Much love. We'll see you in the lobby.
Thank you so much.
Extreme Championship.